Hi everyone, this week I am talking to Rachel Harvey from Rachel Harvey Neurodiverse Tutoring, which is a neurodiverse tutoring company that caters for all learning styles, specifically for children that do not learn in a neurotypical environment. And she's also a learning support specialist teaching in schools. I'm very excited to talk to her today. So from all the way from New Zealand, let's welcome Rachel.
Welcome, Rachel. So good to see you again.
You too.
I'm really happy for you to come on here and share what you know with parents so that we have more knowledge about how the wonderful human brain works across every aspect of neurodivergence.
Yeah, cool.
So do you want to tell our audience a bit about what you do and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Well, it starts right back at the beginning when I was at school. I promise I won't do every year of my life, but it was hard. It was a struggle, and the teachers always got annoyed with me. One of my teachers had a desk outside the classroom that was mine. So the first time I asked a question, they'd be like, "Out you go."
When you just asked a question? Yes.
I was the one who asked a question within the first 5 minutes because I didn't understand what was going on. So I had my desk outside the room, but I had no idea that I was any different. I just thought certain subjects were harder for me than they seemed to be for other people. It wasn't until I was at university doing an assignment on ADHD and getting distracted by all of the awesome quizzes in the middle of the book instead of actually doing the research I was meant to do, where I filled it out and got like full blown, "You're ADHD." So I did a few others to cross-reference and make sure it was true, and then actually went and got a formal diagnosis, and it explained so much about why school was hard, why all the teachers would get annoyed with me, why I was always in trouble for talking, which was not like gossip. It was, what are we doing again? I have no idea what the teacher just said. They talked for half an hour and I was all on for 2 minutes and then gone. So everything changed from that point on, and it was just a massive relief, like a weight off my shoulders, because it wasn't me and I'm not faulty. I'm just different. So I was training to become a teacher when I found that out, and it completely changed my focus on going into the classroom going, I'm going to find these kids that were like me, and I'm going to make sure they know that they're okay and it's fine to learn differently. And that was 20 years ago when I started teaching. And it's just been a case of spotting these kids over time and helping them in the classroom and doing a lot of research in my own time to learn more about ADHD, but then just realizing that there's all these different ways that people learn. There's all sorts of different ways people's brains are wired, and started getting quite passionate about the fact that our education system is set up for neurotypicals, and that all of these kids are made to feel like something's wrong with them because they can't learn under the current system. Well, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that it was easier to set up an education system that worked for the majority. So that's where my passion comes from, my personal experience. And then also, I felt stupid and I felt like something was wrong with me all the way through education. So to prevent children from feeling that way and to help them realize that they're awesome and their difference makes them special rather than like a burden on the education system. So that's where all the passion came from. And then seeing the change in children when you actually put nurture ahead of everything else. You are an important individual, and who you are, there's nothing faulty about that. We have to change, not you. So I need to change the way I'm teaching and change the way I'm presenting the lessons and things to you so that you can learn.
Yes.
When you do that, it completely changes their lives. And then if they feel that nurture and understanding and acceptance, it really opens them up to the learning. Yeah. So I mean, that was the inspiration. Where it's gone since there is crazy. because there is so much scientific research out there on the brain and how we learn, that it's like a Pandora's box. Once you start getting into the research and finding out that there's been science for more than 20 years proving that there's one way to teach literacy that works for everybody, and we haven't been doing it. It's crazy. The research has been out there. So yeah, now I'm really fired up.
And why don't you think there's been that change yet?
I think there's something that happens in education. You know, things go around. The phonics came around, it went away, it comes back again in a different form. Teachers are so used to seeing different programs come and go that they get to a point where it's like, oh, I'm doing this because I've always done it and I know it and it's easy. And they're worried that whatever new thing that comes out is just another fad. So, I mean, you'd have to really be interested in it and start looking into the science behind it and everything to be like, okay, actually, this is the one change I need to make. Also, there's a lot of money involved, because in New Zealand, there's money behind the reading recovery, the Murray Clay stuff that has been earmarked for that. So, you know, governments have money in certain programs and things that they've made commitments to. And so you couldn't just on a whim go, all right, we're going to retrain all of our teachers in a whole new way, and all of the programs that we've put millions into, we're just going to drop them and pick up a new one. Like, it's a long process to change something. I just think, you know, we should have changed it by now. So yeah, there's definitely a groundswell in New Zealand now, like it's taking off. Not government directed, it's school directed, like the individual teachers and management and other people out there who are starting businesses to try and change the way we teach, you know, despite what the government wants to do. And teachers have a lot of power.
So I agree with all of that, and I'm very passionate about child-led learning and making sure that children feel seen and heard. And I think it was a drive that came from my own experience as a child and not feeling that, and not getting that. And now, you know, talking to you last week and doing a lot of research, I really feel like I've got ADHD as well. And looking back on, you know, my school records, I was never told that I was stupid or, you know, that I wasn't very good, but I was very good at deceiving everyone into thinking that I'm, you know, this perfect student. And, you know, in high school, for example, I was one of the 6 main leaders of the school and as a prefect, and I got colours in music and I got all these awards. But were they anything to do with academia? No. I think I failed English and biology in year 12, and I was doing them again in year 13. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm 32 and I've only just now started thinking that, maybe this is why I am the way I am, like everything's starting to make sense.
1 in 5 of the population are neurodivergent.
20%.
Yes. Yeah, 20%. So it's really not a small amount, like not enough to shaft them in the education system and say, oh, you're different, you'll have to work it out. 20% is huge. Yeah. So I'd normally say, oh, that's scary, 20%. But no, it's actually something to be celebrated, that we know this. These are the people who are now being targeted for employment. They're saying would suit someone with neurodivergence in their adverts and things, because these people are proven now to be so beneficial to companies. So that they've got a lot to offer, and they think outside the box, and they've got a way of just coming up with ideas, and might have different social skills or require a different office setting that is soundproofed or, you know, without the distractions and things. But once you've got the ideal environment for these people, they they are going to contribute a lot to your company. So it's not something to just go, you just need to survive the education system, and then once you get out there, you'll be fine. No, it should be equal access of education to all, you know. So 20% of those kids, imagine what they could do if they had the same access to education that everybody else had. If they're already out there doing amazing things, imagine how many more could be if they actually had the sort of literacy teaching that would put them ahead.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. Like, these people are coming out the other end of education and still making this incredible I don't know, what are they?
Contribution?
Yeah, they are. Their contribution to society and what they can offer is massive. And that's without ideal education.
Yes.
You know, that's just scraping through. That's just putting on this facade and pretending that you can cope, and going home and having to nap on the couch or something because you're so exhausted from pretending all day that you were okay when you're not. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, pack of chips on the couch, vegging in front of the TV for 2 hours before you can actually function again. That is part of neurodivergence. If your kid comes home and they are completely lazy and won't contribute or do anything after school, really think about why that is, because working your brain, it's a muscle. So, you know, you could go, you do a marathon and you come home, you would expect your child to lie down on the couch. But after a day of school, you want them to come home and do homework and everything else. But for these neurodivergent children, that's a marathon for them. They've exercised their brain so much during the day just to do what neurotypicals can do without thinking. They're exhausted when they get home. So maybe instead of, you know, giving them a hard time about not contributing after school to the household, think about, why are they so tired? You know, what's happened during their day that they're so exhausted when they get home? The majority of the children I work with, their parents say they're really tired when they get home, which is why, you know, tutoring in the afternoon is not ideal, because they're done by then. But
what do you think needs to change in schools to help neurodivergent children feel calmer, less tired at the end of the day, and more able to focus and to learn?
Well, there's quite a few things, and in the modern learning environments we have in New Zealand at the moment, you can have up to 90 children in an open space between 3 teachers.
90?
So yeah, 90. So
wow.
I mean, up to 90, but yes, we have open space classrooms that flow into each other, and say 3 teachers in the space. And they're modern, and they're designed to be have this inclusivity and this flow between the rooms and the teachers. The problem is you have children who get overstimulated, or auditory processing disorders, or you know, even ADHD. Like, I don't know about you, Lara, but with me, I hear everything. Like, everything comes in at the same level. So teachers talking, I can hear the clock ticking, I can hear the kid flicking their pen in the background. I'm actually listening in on a conversation over to my left because it's more interesting than what the teacher's saying. I'm also wondering what I'm going to be doing after school. There's something out the window. Like, then you add bright colored walls and artwork hanging and all of this. So you've got visual stimulation, you have movement of children through the rooms because you're working with a teacher, but other kids are moving around. You have the auditory, so all of the talking, like it's too much. And then we want them to work, like read this chapter and then answer these questions, and yet all of the stuff's going on around them. That's exhausting. Like, as a teacher with ADHD, that's incredibly exhausting, managing all of that and still trying to be normal. Because that's what's expected. We all need to be normal, right?
Right. What is that?
Oh, I don't even know. I'm my normal.
Yeah.
So the modern learning environments are not great. But then, you know, The old fashioned learning environments weren't great either. Because so they've moved away from this everyone at their desk, you're all treated as machines type thing, into this very inclusive, it's more of a holistic model. But you've taken these neurodivergents away from what was working for them, really, because I mean, you have your desk, it's yours, the things inside it belong to you, the desk is in the same place, you know where to go, you know where your things are, you know what the expectations are. Subjects were separate. You did writing, then you did reading, then you did maths. And it was all very compartmentalized and a little bit easier for these students to cope. Plus, old school, be quiet. You know, we were all working on something at the same time. The class was quiet. It's completely different now. And I understand what they're trying to achieve with that, which is admirable. But then you've got to have these breakout spaces for these kids that are soundproofed, because you know, we still want the inclusivity and the nurturing environment and the catering for diversity, but these kids need to be able to cut it all out just to concentrate.
If it was your school and you could design it.
Oh, I've thought about this.
What would it look like?
Well, interestingly, it would be outside as much as possible, because trees, nature, fresh air, like they're so good for the soul. If you have that, it's almost like at the expense of sounding a bit airy-fairy, it's this freedom of your spirit, of just being like, okay, and being able to breathe, and then being open to learning. If you're treated like a machine and it's like, you've got half an hour to get through this, and then we're doing this, then we're doing this, and you need to tick off all these things, and it's like we treat these kids like they're a machine and they've got to perform all of these tasks for us by the end of the day. Pressure. I mean, I don't learn in an environment like that. So there are some neurotypical children who cope really well with that sort of pressure. But you neurodivergent have their own issues that they're dealing with, and then you put pressure on top of that is kind of what breaks them. So yeah, I think if I was setting up my own school, I would be mixing the ages a little bit more than having like just one age in a class, having more family groups with older and younger children together. I would want teacher aides in the classroom. So one teacher and a couple of teacher aides. So then having that freedom to just, it's summer only really, but to go outside and sit under a tree to do some work, get away from the stimulation, have different spaces set up for different kinds of learning, like having soundproof booths and, benches under trees and hammocks. And I know it sounds quite alternative, but it's like,
oh, it sounds like a dream to me.
When I was at university, like this is weird, but I used to study in the bath. Like, I mean, I put blankets in. There was no water. It was like duvets, pillows. Would take my laptop or whatever into the bathroom and study in there, because it was no distractions. It's just white. There's nothing in there to distract me. It's somewhat uncomfortable, so I just want to get it done. And it was about finding the space. It was like a cocoon. I felt like trapped in, and it forced me to get the work done. And I would set times and go, okay, an hour studying in the bathtub. And it was just, I was just looking for the space that was calming for me. And that was it. So now I would probably be wanting to find a hammock, something that's swaying with the wind. Yeah, I like next to the ocean. I don't live next to the ocean, but that would be really nice. It's like finding your zen space, it's something that works for you. And there's a lot of kids who don't actually need to do that. Neurotypical can just pretty much go with whatever they need to do. But the rest of us, we have to find what works for us, and it's not supported in our education system. It would actually be very hard to. I do understand that.
One step at a time. We'll get there. And there are alternative schools popping up all over the place. A lot of forest
Yeah.
schools now in the UK are coming up. And
I guess my thing would be that even though I sound a bit alternative and different, I would be basing everything in science. It has to be evidence-based. So it's not just because it feels good, it's because there is scientific evidence that being in nature and being outside helps your brain receive learning better. You know, like it's not just there is. Yeah, there's a lot of research out there about that. So just around the brain, and you know, we have that fight or flight thing going on. The fight or flight mode is when your adrenaline and cortisol levels are high. You can't learn like that. So kids often come into school like that, not ready for learning. They've been like in survival mode. They get to school, they're worried about friendships, they don't want to get in trouble with the teacher, they've missed a deadline, and they've got those levels are too high to actually receive new learning. So what we need to do as educators, or as the people working with them, is set this really calm environment. They come in, they know the expectations, they know the routine, they trust you, they feel loved, respected, understood. Then those adrenaline and cortisol levels come down, and the serotonin oxytocin flow goes up, and we've got now our brain is ready to receive new information and learning, and that is all around that nurture. So if you don't have that nurturing environment where the children feel safe, like they can breathe out and just go, oh, okay, I'm good now, they're not going to learn, or they'll learn not at capacity. So it's our job as their educators to be setting that tone and that safety zone for them at the beginning of every day, and then throughout their year. And that's not common with education, as far as I have experienced. It's more, well, teachers are run into the ground. There's so much to do, so many subjects to cover. Our workload is huge. And so in the morning is when you're stressed the most, because you're like, I've got to get all this stuff ready for the day, and I've got to set this up, and oh, God, you don't touch that. And that's kind of how your day starts a lot of the time. And so the kids come into your turmoil because you've now got 15 minutes till the bell's going, and you guys are too late and get out. And, you know, and that's often how the start of your day goes. So we're not setting our kids up for success, starting them out like that. Yeah, so that's one of my big things, is reset myself at the door, and whatever I'm bringing my stress and panic and jumbled brain, which is always there, I kind of got to leave it at the door and be who I need to be for these kids, so that they're like, you're calm, I can be calm. Yeah.
I think that's why I really liked Rye. When I was a teacher, I came across the centre called TLC, the Learning Centre, and when I walked in there, I instantly felt so calm. There was very little on the wall, neutral colours. All the teachers were sitting down. They're not rushing around, and they're like the rock for these infants and toddlers. Oh, it's just so beautiful to see. And
there's no reason why we can't do that with older children.
Right.
We should be able to keep doing that all the way through.
Yeah.
But it requires quite a lot of self-discipline as the adults in the room to leave your stuff out of it.
Yeah, which can be difficult sometimes, especially if you're going through something intense in your home life and then leaving it at the door and not bringing it into the classroom. So what is the difference between neurodivergent and neurotypical?
So interestingly, the term that is probably most commonly known as neurodiversity, which was the term coined quite a while ago now. And the issue with that is we know that diverse includes all, and neurodiversity has been used as a term that refers to specific people who are differently wired in their brain. That is more commonly becoming known as neurodivergent now, which makes sense because diverse is everybody is different, and divergent is there are some people who diverge from the norm. So you have, so I've got that image of the umbrella with neurodiversity, so that's all of us. And then under the umbrella, you have neurotypicals and you have neurodivergence. So your neurotypicals, 80% of the population, your neurodivergence are 20% of the population. Our education system is set up for the neurotypicals, so the 80%. And the neurodivergence just survive. You get through and out the other end, maybe with qualifications, maybe not. The scary thing is that the prison population is 90%, in the last research that was done in New Zealand was around 90% illiterate and 60% dyslexic. Yeah. So you have to kind of go at some point, our education system is failing these people, because if 60% are dyslexic, we know dyslexia is something that you're born with. It doesn't come up because of bad parenting or, you know, a teacher you didn't like or something. You're born dyslexic. So how is it that 60% of our prisoners are dyslexic? If you are going through a system where you never learnt to read or write, you don't, it's pretty hard to function in our society not reading or writing. So it's like there's this one track that you can go. You know, it's not quite that dire. There's a whole lot of people with dyslexia out doing well with their life, but it is concerning that 90% of our prison inmates are illiterate. So our education system is failing a whole bunch of people. The interesting thing I find in New Zealand is that they, after this research came out, they put literacy programs into the prisons to work with people to improve their reading and writing, which is fantastic. But they did nothing with the schools. So it's like they, you know, you're going to help people once they get to prison, but you're not going to change our schooling system. That means that they ended up leaving education without reading or writing.
So these literacy,
that it just doesn't make sense. Like,
no, it doesn't.
No, so you would think that is very much ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, right? I'm not saying take literacy out of the prisons. It's brilliant. I think the work they're doing is amazing and they need to keep doing it, increase it, do it more. But also you need to look at our schools and go, why are that many people leaving the education system illiterate? They shouldn't be. They're all in there. They're a captive audience for, you know, how many years of their life. And they're leaving not reading or writing. What are we doing in that time? So it's scary. So now what's happening with the structured literacy, the science of reading, is that because of the neurological scanning, they're now able to back up like 20 years of research saying there is one way that the brain learns to read and write. And it's this particular way. They're now able to prove that with neuroscans, and it's, you can't refute that. They've tried, lots of people have tried to disprove all of this, and you can't disprove it, that there is one way, and it is
and this is for both neurotypical and neurodivergent people.
So there is a slide I have there called the ladder of reading. At the top you've got 5% learning to read. It's effortless. You know, those are the kid you could throw a book at their head and they'll learn. It's really nothing you do. They're going to read anyway. And then you've got 35% learning to read is relatively easy with basic broad instruction. So whatever, whether you do whole language, balanced literacy, structured literacy, they'll get it, they'll learn, they'll be fine. And this is the scary bit, 40 to 50% don't learn that way. So 50% of our students need a structured literacy approach to reading and writing for them to learn. Then you've got 10 to 15% that need structured literacy on repeat. So lots and lots of repetitions of the same content over and over throughout their schooling for it to be consolidated enough to apply it in life outside of school.
Interesting.
So those are the 10 to 15% that will not be reading and writing when they leave school if they don't get that. So it's if you have the structured literacy approach in your schools, you've got 100% coverage. So all of those children have the capability of reading and writing. That bottom 10 to 15% are the ones who need intervention, so which traditionally has been reading recovery, but reading recovery has been proven not to work for neurodivergence. So ironically, the kids who are going to need it the most aren't going to learn to read through that. So that helps your neurotypicals who are at the bottom kind of the ladder, but your neurodivergents won't learn through reading recovery. So they need an intensive structured literacy tier 3 intervention. So there's another image in there with the tiers. So it's like a pyramid, and at the bottom you have tier 1, which is classroom practice. So that one is just, you know, your day-to-day classroom program. Then you have tier 2 for your children who are struggling a bit and they have extra support in the class, whether it's a teacher aide or whether the teacher takes a second group or whatever with them. And then you have tier 3, which is that pretty much that bottom 10 to 15% of children who are not going to learn in the classroom and they need specialized support. So whether that is a private tutor doing structured literacy, or the school is fortunate enough to have the budget to be able to employ someone to do that, which is kind of rare in our public system, then that would be tier 3. So that's very repetitive at that point, and you go back and you're working on a foundation and you're really building them up and repeating over and over. So there is research around how many repetitions you need to consolidate your learning. So a neurotypical needs between 1 and 4 repetitions of content for it to be consolidated. So we're talking
really
1 to 4 repetitions, that's it.
What?
So I know, crazy, eh? There are people who can get stuff like that. That's neurotypical. That is the 80% of the population. So they basically, the teacher teaches something, you go over it, the kids do some follow-up work, you review it the next day, you're already hitting like 3 repetitions there. One more time, it's in. Like if you see the word "and" written down, you know "and," it's in your head, you'll never forget that. That's there for good. That's like consolidated learning, right? So they get that in 1 to 4 repetitions.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know, lucky them. And then you have the people who have, or the students who have mild learning difficulty or divergence, and they need 12 repetitions of something for it to become consolidated, which is still not too hard to do 12 repetitions. That's kind of your tier 2. So that's, you've got the general classroom teaching, and then you might do something at home with your parents around, you know, they send stuff home for you to do, or the teacher aide's working with the child in the class on that thing a few more times, and you can get up to 12 repetitions. That becomes consolidated. Then you have your neurodivergence, your well, I was going to say diagnosed, but there's plenty of undiagnosed who are extremely at the extreme end of their spectrum. But the ones who are really affected by their learning needs are 36 to 100 repetitions for them to consolidate information.
Wow.
So that is not going to happen in the classroom. That requires lots of work at home. It requires an amazing attitude and effort from the child, because they're going to be having to go over something a lot. So in my job, I have a few jobs, but one of them is a learning support teacher in a school, and I do the 36 to 100 repetitions. So they come to me and I have to, so I'm following a scope and sequence that is very structured, it's cumulative, it's explicit, and we go through that over and over and over. Like we don't do Monday, we're going to learn Magic E. Tuesday, we're going on to something else. We do Magic E for about 3 weeks. So they see me 3 times a week for 45 minutes, and we're going to do that for 3 weeks. And we're going to approach it in as many different ways as we can. So last week I was doing Magic E with some kids, and we made rainbows out of plasticine and had them going from an E over to another vowel to show that the E made the vowel before, say, its long sound, put glitter on it, make it magic. Poor E has lost his voice and we can't hear him anymore. And they were like, that's so sad. And it's like, you know, you create an image and you create something they'll remember. And that's like 5 repetitions. So we're a long way off, you know. We then need to see that image a lot. We need to talk about it a lot. Every time we are covering, we're reading, we're seeing the Magic E in there, and I'm saying, hey, look, there's a Magic E. Remember what it does? And you're going over and over and over it. When we eventually move on to the next thing, I'm still going to be mentioning the Magic E for another 2 months after that, at least. So you just keep reviewing, you keep going over and over and over it, but not in a way that feels taxing for the kids. It's they feel quite proud that they know what it is. When you say, what's Magic E again? And they can all kind of tell you what it is, and they're all excited about it. It's not boring. It's really interesting. And if you talk to any of my kids, I'm pretty sure they would tell you they really enjoy it. So I talk to my children about their brain being a bucket, and that when we're learning new concepts, and so they know all about the repetitions. I had a bucket and I filled it up with water, and I showed them how many repetitions they need, and that they're like the 36 to 100 group. And I said, every time you leave here, you leave the lid off your bucket and you go slosh, 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 and you come back tomorrow and there's hardly anything left. So we've got to start filling it up again. And they really understood that, and it made sense to them. So they often say, how full is my bucket, miss? Like, do I know that now? So it's this visual concept that's actually quite beneficial for them to understand what I'm doing and why we go over it and over it so many times. Yeah, so it's an effective way of showing them. And I got the bucket and I showed, okay, this is neurotypical. Just filled it up and went, done. They know it. They're like, that's not fair. I'm like, yeah, I know, like the world's not fair, guys, but it's good for you to be really aware that you need lots of repetitions, because I'm here to help you do it now. But when you go to high school, no one's going to be doing it for you, and you've got to go home and run your own study so that you do all those repetitions, and you've got to take responsibility for that. So if they didn't understand they needed that, they might start failing at high school and not know why. So yeah, it's being really real with them and open and honest and going, this is what your brain is like, and it's fantastic, and there's heaps of advantages, but you've got to be in control of the disadvantages so that you're not disadvantaged in life.
Rachel, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and your experience with listeners. And I think it will help many a parent and child. If anyone who is listening wants to find out more about what you do and find more helpful information, where can they do that?
So I have a Facebook page, and but probably more importantly is to go and find the website. So it's Rachel Harvey NDT for Neurodiverse Tutoring.co.nz. So I've got articles that I write in there that give a bit more of the research and visuals and things. And because I'm neurodivergent, I write for Neurodivergence. So they are not long articles. They are easy to understand. They have visuals. So, you know, like I'm wading through massive research things to write the simplest little bit so that you can get it. It's, yeah. And then I've got, in there I have a shop. So I've got resources that I make to sell, a lot of them PDFs. So really easy to access. Like I have these flashcards that I use with my students that have the side for them, and then all of the teaching information on the back. So because neurodivergence again, I can't remember stuff. So I can get up in front of the class and they can say, how do you spell that? And I'll go mind blank. So which is not good for a literacy specialist. So I make resources basically that makes teaching super easy, and you don't have to be a teacher to use them. So if you just want to help your kids at home, all of the information is on the back. You don't need to do any research. You don't need to know anything beforehand. Is helping your child. You have all the resources that you need to be able to do it at home. And the science shows they need 3 interventions a week of about half an hour to make a huge difference in their lives. And you can actually do that as their parents. You don't have to be a teacher. First, you can actually email me and ask me questions. And I love replying to those when I should be going to bed at night because, procrastination, I don't like sleeping much. Answer them.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rachel.
You are so welcome.